So I thought we'd take a break from the Spanish lessons today, and I'll share with you my top tips for vocabulary learning. And in spot number 3, we have find a hook. So usually a visual hook. Any hook that is going to hook that word and its meaning in your mind. So let's take, for example, you're learning the Spanish word for rice, which is arroz. Arroz. Arroz is rice. And you imagine, you look at that word arroz, what word can we make from that that's an English word, and it's a little bit like arrow. Arrow. Arroz, arrow. So you imagine an arrow being fired into a big sack of rice. And you get that mental image, and then it's very difficult to forget that arroz means rice. Once you've practiced this technique for a while, you'll find yourself making those images automatically, and it speeds up the learning process. Another example would be, say you're learning the French word for to find. The French word for to find is trouver. Trouver. You can imagine finding a treasure trove. Trove like trouver. Now the associations don't have to be exact. It only has to be enough to hook the sound and the meaning in your mind. So trouver isn't exactly like trove, but you will remember it. So you look at the word to find, its meaning trouver, and you create a picture in your mind of you finding trouver, finding a trove, a treasure trove. And in second spot, for words that just don't stick, and usually these are words that are very difficult to find an association for, to find a hook, then what you want to try and do with these words is to spend some time forgetting them. And as strange as that sounds, it really works. Let's take an example. So again, we'll use Spanish, and the Spanish word for to do is hacer. To do is hacer. It's quite difficult to find a hook, and students often struggle to remember it. So hacer is to do. So you have that perhaps on a piece of paper, and you look at it and you say, okay, so to do is hacer. And then you're going to close your eyes, and for 10 seconds, when I say go, for 10 seconds you're going to do everything you can to make sure you don't think of to do being hacer. Okay, so you're going to try not to think of hacer being to do at all. Okay, so when I say go, close your eyes and do not think of hacer, whatever you do. Okay, and start now. So I'll count to 10, and remember, you're trying not to think of this word, so make sure you keep it out of your mind. And then the 10 seconds are up. If you managed to keep it out of your mind, well done. And if you didn't, well done as well, because either way, that technique will have locked in your mind that to do is hacer. So that's the trick of forgetting tricky words. And in number 1 spot, this is a technique that I've used for probably more than 20 years with my students. It's something that I used when I was learning languages, and it must work pretty well because I can still remember not just one word, but 3 different words for plow handle in Spanish. Not that useful anymore, but that's how well the method works. Okay, to start off, you'll need some index cards, or you can just cut up some pieces of paper. My students like to keep all their cards in a special little tin or special little box. And so we'll start with just 5 words that you want to learn, and over time we'll increase this, but just start with 5. And on each card, write the English on one side, and then on the other side, the foreign language word. Later on, when you get used to this, you can use it for little phrases as well. And eventually, I used to put 3 or 4 different words on each card. But to start with, we'll do the basic step first. So you've got your cards. You've got English on one side and the foreign language on the other side. And the first step after that is to get familiar with the language before you properly start to engage with it. So just have let's say with Spanish, the foreign language, the Spanish, facing up, and you're just going to look at the card, turn it over, look at the English, put it to the back of your pack, so you're holding it like you're holding like a deck of cards, and work your way through the 5, just taking your time, just getting used to what those words are, what the meaning is, perhaps sounding it out. So this will take, for 5 words, it'll take 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, now turn the cards over. So again, you're still kind of holding them all together in like a little pack, and you'll have the English facing up. So you look at your first card. Okay, let's say it was rice. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, do I know what the word for rice is? Can I remember? And you think, yeah, okay, I think it's arroz. You have a look at it. If you get it right, then put it to one side, put it down on the table. If you got it wrong or you didn't know it, look at the Spanish word for it or the foreign language word for it and spend a second or so getting it in your head, and then put it to the back of the pack. So that's going to come back up again in a minute. So then you go to your second one and you do the same. So let's say it's French and it says to find, and you're trying to remember the word. If you remember it and you check and it's right, then put it down on the table. That's a learnt word. And if it's wrong, put it to the back and it'll come up again in a minute. And you'll end up in a few minutes with the first word that you got wrong coming back up again, and so you're getting a second chance to do it. And if you get it wrong again, that's okay, put it to the back. So it's a process, and that's what students like about it. It's a process. You're not just there with a long list of words. You've broken it down, and what you know is once you have all of the cards down on the table, then you're finished, you're done. And then the next day, you start off, you see which ones you can remember again, and again you go through the same process. This will be a lot quicker this time because you'll pretty much know them, and then you add in 2, 3, 4, 5 new words, depending on how quickly you learn. Some people may be able to put in 10 straight away the next day. Some people will just put in 2 or 3. That's up to you. You need to find your level. But you just go through the same process. If you are getting cards right straight away, and let's say after a week you know that you know them, then just put them in a separate place, and just every month revise them to make sure you don't forget them completely. And that is the number 1 tip for learning vocabulary. It works well for children, it works well for adults. And as I said before, the thing about it is it's a process. The first part where you're writing down on the cards, that's the start of it. Then you're becoming familiar with it. And then bit by bit, they're getting put down on the table or they're coming up again. And this will always work. And if you do it daily, and don't be too ambitious, make sure you can manage it. But if you imagine that even if you only learn 3 new words every day, then after a year you've got a lot of vocabulary. The mistake people often make is to try to learn list after list, and you become exhausted and bored from that, and it basically doesn't work. You need a graduated approach, which is progressive, and something that you can do every day or every other day. If you're new to the Pro Spanish lessons, then I would suggest that you head over to lesson 1, which is on YouTube here, or lesson 1 of Pro French is on the same channel. If you're already a regular to the Pro Spanish lessons and you want to help us out, then please share this video on your social media sites to give us a bit of a boost so that we can carry on doing more Spanish and French lessons.